we're on to race number 2 of the RS600 Bough Beech Open. Now, you probably saw race 1 in my previous video. Good opportunity to sort of figure it out. A lot of learning from the course, the shifts, understanding the pattern of the wind. We also had the the port flyer that didn't really go well. So hopefully with all of that learning, people are going to go into this race maybe a little bit more relaxed, but also a little bit more fiery because they know what's going on. We've got a good feel of the course now. We've also got a good feel of other people's abilities. Now, to give you some context, the 6 people with black sails were also the top 6 at the Nationals in 2024, with some of these sailors having multiple national championships under their belts, not just in the RS600 as well. They've got really good results in other classes too. So the competition was pretty hot. So with that in mind, the racing gets pretty close. Now we're just here in sequence, everyone's lining up. It looks like everyone's going to start on starboard here by the committee boat end as the wind has shifted back to make a little bit of bias there. So let's have a look to see what happens, if anyone could have done anything differently, and yeah, learn from that too. Now you can probably notice we shared the open with the Wayfarers who started after us. Not too much interference with them, but you can see a few of them bobbing around in the background. Alright, so you can see George up there in the left. He's waiting nice and comfortably for the committee boat end. Let's get ourselves all lined up. You'll see everyone's starting to bunch up here, ready for that committee boat start. George coming back, that was the 1 minute to go. It's all getting very congested here. So last time the fleet was sort of split 50-50, some at the port end on port and some of them, well, down the line on starboard, eventually at the port end. Let's see what happens. We've got what looks like Rich Bone just ducking out of a gap that didn't exist. Getting very tense. I'm trying to figure out if I want to go above everyone and try and do a George, but I decide actually I don't want to get shut out. I'd rather get a nice clean start, come away with some speed a little bit lower down the line where I've got a few more options. Yes, I won't be able to tack, but based on what we've learned, that might not be too much of an issue. So here's the committee. I'm coming in hot with some speed while everyone's bundling up and slowing down. Rich Smith over there in 803, way too early. And there's the go. Definitely over the line. George didn't get quite the clean start that he was hoping for. I kind of lost a little bit of height there. I've come down a little bit, but I have got a nice lane here, which is nice. I did think I was going to be over the line, so I sort of lost a bit of distance there, but it's worked out okay for me here, as everyone else has sort of stalled a little bit with each other's dirt, / also just being so tight to other boats, being hard to sort of get going. So it's worked out okay for me here. Got myself into a nice little bit of pressure there to get myself going. George has had a flying start, even if it was a little bit messed up by Rich Smith. So yeah, looking good so far. As you can see, it's really up and down. There's a few moments of some pressure, other moments where it's quite light. So it's really important to play that kicker just to let the sail breathe again. Make sure it's not in too flattened. I decide to go for a tack here, it looks like. Or do I? No, I decide to keep going. I'm trying to keep an eye on the other boats. I don't want to tack until they do. So there's George going. I decide to go. Everyone else went quite early on, but I decided to keep going because it looked properly flat over the other side. Now, it looks like, if I remember correctly, I'm on the ley line along with George. So we're coming in nice and hot here with a nice bit of pressure coming down the middle of the course, where everyone who's gone towards the dam has sort of come to a bit of a stop. Just being really careful with the body movements. That's where potentially a slightly higher trapeze line would be quite nice for these super marginal conditions, because right there I'm trapezing so high that so low which is normally fine, but it is a bit of a challenge. I have found though when I had the trapeze hook higher, I had the tendency for it to unpop, where I would be standing a little bit more upright, whereas here I definitely have my weight on the wire. Bit more kicker. There we go, nice bit of pressure there. Right on the ley line, I think. Just taking a little bit of height while there is a bit of pressure so that when I get hit by a header, I can still make the mark nicely without having to lose too much. Boats on the right hand side look like they're about to pop a tack in on their ley line. But it's, I mean, I went around the mark second, I can confirm that. But I can't remember how close it was. I think it was still fairly close. But the key thing is I've got nice clear air here, no dirt from anyone else. I went a little bit later than George to make sure I didn't get stuck in his track. There's the header that I was expecting, and you can see there's the windward mark. So I'm coming in nice and hot here, but I am coming in on port, so I am a bit worried about those boats on starboard coming through and messing up my plans. George has managed to get himself really nicely going. Maybe I'm pinching too much. Looks like my luff is flapping a little bit there, so potentially too much. There we go. Nicely ahead there of number third place. Quick tack there. And away we go. Very nice. Now, the difficult thing is now maintaining the second place, especially where downwind, I will be getting the dirt now, rather than the boats from behind. Nice reach there, just to get the boat accelerating. This top reach was really difficult because it was so up and down. Some moments you're going and you want to get some, get some kicker on. Other moments it's more like a downwind section. So you're kind of wanting to not go for too much height so that you then lose out going around the mark. Here's, I think, the Rich Bone in third. Oh, it's Jamie in third place. Now Jamie decides to go far right, just get super, super clear. Now, the key thing here is looking behind. The pressure was definitely oscillating between going down the right-hand side or the left-hand side. And so it definitely paid to make sure you were keeping your head out the boat to look for that pressure and take advantage. Now, I could see that it was looking pretty good on the port of the left-hand side. So I pop a jibe in, and I think you'll see that the boat starts to accelerate quite nicely here. And George is over on the right-hand side thinking, that's looking less than ideal. Getting my weight nice and forwards here, trying to get the transom out of the water. Now, I know there's a bunch of you who watch these videos who maybe haven't sailed a 600 or maybe not sailed anything like a 600. Now, the issue is these boats don't really go very quickly dead downwind like maybe a laser would. Because our shrouds are over the racks, they're a fair bit back, we can't get the boom all the way out. So we typically do angles downwind, a bit like an asymmetric, but these are much deeper angles. So it creates a lot of interesting opportunity because you're basically forced to pick a side rather than just go down the shortest route. And so it means you're constantly looking for that pressure because as soon as you can get the boat up planing, you can then bear away and soak, basically dead downwind. So the trick I'm trying to do here is go for a little bit of height, get the pressure, get the speed, and then I can soak the boat super low as I dare before it tries to jibe. And it's just about giving it a little pump during those gusts just to get it planing so that you can then soak super low. Now here, I'm actually, I would say, pointing potentially a little bit too low, and I'm kind of stalling. And so what I really should do is probably head for a little bit of height, because it looks like I've stalled completely. Yeah, here we go. I've gone for the little bit of height just to get back to accelerating. And sometimes it can help to just pull a boom a little bit off the shroud, just to help it get going. And then once it's going, you can let the boom out like I've done there. Now, to jibe, I've got to do this U-shape thing where I have to run to the back of the boat. Ooh. We are allowed to hit marks, but I'll clarify that in a minute. So, yeah, we've got to sort of run backwards around our main sheet ratchet, swap sides for the tiller extension, then run back to the front. Luckily, we do have a foredeck to sit on, which can make this quite comfortable. Now, I had a question in the last video about mark roundings. Now, in a 600, you are allowed to hit marks. The rule generally says that if you try and manhandle the mark by, ramming into it to effectively move it so you can get round it, then you'll probably get frowned upon and be asked to do a turn. But if you hit it with your tiller extension, which is quite common because it's so long, especially downwind where the tiller extension is normally sticking out to the side, or if you hit it with your racks, again another thing, then it's not the end of the world. It's quite a normal thing in a lot of double-handed skiffs such as the RS600, the 49er, and the International 14, where they have 2 tiller extensions. So there's always something sticking out the side of the boat, way past the racks, and they're always super prone to hitting things. So it's a useful rule for those kind of boats too, where they physically can't stop the other tiller extension hitting things. Yeah, like for example, if you're bearing on a windward mark, your leeward tiller extension is going to probably hit it if it's a tight rounding. Luckily, the tiller extension will just move. Now, this bottom reach was difficult. Very, very light. Some people decided to go right towards the shore and sort of go lower before they jibed, and then they could take some height to get to the mark. As you can see, I've got to go way lower now to make it, and I'm trying really hard to keep the boats behind. Jamie, I've managed to keep him behind by jibing off early and getting that early pressure, whereas he went down the right-hand side and got shut off. George just rounded ahead. I'm able to soak lower now that there's a bit more pressure on this side and it's bending a little bit. Starting to think about getting those controls on so I can have a nice tight rounding, because I do have boats close behind and I want to make sure that they don't try and get on the inside of me. Get myself hooked on, and now I can get myself round. Not the tightest rounding in the world, but generally quite good. And there's actually a few boats there you can see who've gone really high to try and defend their wind, and now they're having to soak super low, potentially even going to have to pop a jibe in to get round the mark. Back upwind. Wind is still being a little bit fickle. Could do with a little bit more to help us get comfortably on the rack, but potentially I could do with losing about 5 to 10 kilograms of weight as well to help with that. Trying to make sure I don't step on the rack too early and stall the boat. I don't want to move the weight too far. You know, I don't want to flat hike just for a little puff. I want to just gently do it. So trying to keep my weight in one place. Thinking about doing my tack now, so there's a bit more pressure here. Let's go for the tack. Nicely does it. I do have a video coming out soon of some tacking practice I did recently, trying to get myself hooked on the exit much quicker. I think my entry's pretty good on the most part. I think I can sort that out most of the time, but it's the exit which is a bit inconsistent. Right, back through the start line. Wayfarers are started now. George has gone off to the left-hand side, a bit like we did last lap. I'm thinking of probably doing the same thing because it's, well, feeling quite good on this tack. But potentially we'll see. I can't remember what happens. So we'll have to see if I decide to go back to the right. It's a little bit up and down. I'm trying really hard to not overdo it on the kicker here. George has tacked quite early on. Probably about the same sort of place he did last time. But the wind has definitely shifted now, I think, so that he won't be able to make the ley line so early. Yeah, difficult one. Try and get a bit of that kicker off, let the sail breathe. Thinking about popping that tack in. Looking around to see, is there pressure? I mean, I'm going really nicely now, so I don't really want to tack. Thinking about it. Getting a lift there, but also kind of not. I think I see some pressure coming down the middle, so I decide let's pop the tack in now, especially because the fleet's tacked off and I don't want to separate myself too far from the fleet this far up in the race. Currently I'm in second place, potentially now third. I don't want to mess up my result by deciding to take a risk when it wasn't worth it. Looks like I tacked into a right lull there, which was not ideal. I think that's Rich Bone there coming through to take second place from me, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what happens sometimes. He's got some crazy height there. Look at the lift he's on. I should have definitely... He's practically pointing at the clubhouse. I should have definitely stayed. I definitely tacked onto a massive header there. I should tack back, to be honest, and follow his lift. George is on the same lift ahead. So this is where I went wrong, and this is where I lost second place and came third in this race, was because I'm sailing on the header. I'm practically pointing at the water tower, which at Bough Beech was nowhere near the windward mark. Okay, I can't actually see what the other boats are doing, so I am curious to sort of understand if they followed me. It looks like George is on the ley line now, going along the top of the club there, so we'll see what happens. Okay, I've tacked back, but I've tacked back way later than I should have. It looks like Richbone's potentially gone too far on the left side there. Potentially it's going to be quite close. It's kind of hard to tell whether the 360 camera warped view to understand, like, am I sailing in line with him and he's just been sat in a hole? But it definitely looks like he's going to be sailing behind me. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong person. That's someone else. Richbone's the one ahead of me there. He's definitely going to cross me. In fact, he's crossing me there. Look at the huge gain that he had on me there because I should have tacked back. And in fact, Andy Peak there on the left, he's also tacked, gone that way. I should have tacked back. So yeah, retrospectively, that was a bad move. I decided to pop a quick tack in front of Andy there just to make sure that he can't do anything to mess me up. I want to make sure I can get around that windward mark in front of him, despite the fact that he had a slight advantage of only needing to do one tack. Take a little bit of height there just to get in his way, and then I'm going to throw a big tack in here. Do it quickly so that he can't jump in on the inside. Yeah, there we go. He's gone from behind because he had no room. And just like that, we're away. Okay, top reach is looking a little bit windier than last time. It's difficult because I want to take the height, get the boat planing, and then try and bear away, but at the same time, I also don't want to get greedy and let boats soak in below. I'm going really quickly here. This is lovely. And I'm pointing practically at the Mark II, so hopefully I should be able to maintain this. Coming for a nice bear away at the mark and then focus on doing a jibe. Now I want to do a jibe here. The pressure's coming down the other side, so let's pop that jibe in now and continue taking the pressure. However, on retro, I probably should have kept going because I've lost all my speed through doing that jibe. And looking at the boat who went to the right of me, which I think was Andy Peak or maybe Jamie, they just kept going and bared away, and they kept the momentum going. So it's difficult to know. I'm thinking, do I go back? Do I go back? Do I follow Rich? I'm staring at the wind, trying really hard to figure out what's working across the course. I'm thinking, okay, we'll keep going this way. I think the momentum helped Andy on the right-hand side, but not enough to pay actually going that way. Rich is gone. I want to make sure that I jibe before others so I can get into clear breeze. There's a bit of pressure coming down here, so let's take that pressure and see if I can get a little bit of speed. Pulling that main sheet in just a little bit there just to help the boat get going. There you go, a little bit of speed getting on there. Trying to avoid the dirt from behind too is always a challenge. Now, I bought a compass recently. I've never had a compass. I need to 3D print a mount for it. I haven't got around to doing it, so I need to do that really soon because a compass definitely would have been quite useful for helping detect some of those wind shifts when we were at the bottom of the beat. Okay, coming in nicely. Thinking about doing my jibe, coming back towards the boat. Popping it in, nice jibe. Watch the mark with the tiller extension because that's not quick. Right, so here I'm thinking, is this a reach that I want to hook on for? This is sort of where the 600 becomes quite an annoying boat. There's nowhere to really sit on these light wind reaches. Like the foredeck sometimes is good, but sometimes you need to be a little further back in order to balance the boat because the boat does get narrower the further forward you go. But in other cases, you need to be a bit further back ready to hook on. And with where my Japanese is, it's directly behind me, which is the worst place to try and hook on. I sometimes consider us moving it to the rack for these light wind days because it's a little bit more out of my way then. Got some nice speed going on there. I'm pointing practically at the mark. It looks like you can just see it between my sail and the boom. And I've got my weight nice and far forwards, and you can just see the corner of the transom there is nice and out of the water. Looks like George has just gone through the line. He's made a huge gain by going left upwind, and I should have done the same on retro. So this is a good learning experience for me because it's my first time watching this full race back. At the time, I just thought it was because I did something silly, but no, it was really obvious. I went the wrong way up the beat, and I should have kept my head more out the boat. Nice rounding. Definitely need some more kicker on, though. There we go. Now, the thing I find is sometimes with the 600, it can be difficult to get the controls on when you're sat in the bottom of the boat on the foredeck, because you can't really get the right angle for pulling the kicker and stuff on enough. So sometimes you get enough on, get around that mark, do the main sheet tension with your arm, and then get the kicker on, because a good mark rounding, especially around other boats, is more important. You can always faff with the kicker and stuff later on. Okay, it's getting a little bit fickle. I'm thinking of going right to the committee boat, popping a tack in, and we'll see where we go. There we go, popping a tack in. Nice and slow. There's Andy Peak. He's popped his in too. Very, very light. Very, very gentle. Andy's already up and going. Hopefully I'll get hit by the same bit of pressure in a minute. Andy's got a nice lane there. Potentially I'm pinching too much. A good way to sort of detect that is to see if my luff's flapping. I should definitely spend more time looking up at the luff. As you can see, it's starting to invert itself a little bit there. And so I could do with maybe a little bit more Cunningham. Now, Cunningham feels really counterintuitive on these light wind days. But a flat sail, especially at the front, where you want to stop that sail from basically inverting on itself, because that will make it really unstable when you're trying to hook on. Tacked onto Andy here just to make sure that he doesn't get something I don't. There's a nice bit of pressure here. I've got stuffed here. I definitely should have bared away a little bit more just to get myself a bit of speed. Yeah, Andy's just accelerated off there. I just can't quite get myself in the groove. So this time it's paying to go right up the beat. Well, at least that's what it seems. We're pointing much higher than we were on the last lap. Really struggling to get myself comfortable on the trapeze there. My knees are killing me. Andy's gone for a tack back. I'm definitely getting headed. I'm now pointing way below the water tower that you can see in the distance there. But I've got a nice bit of pressure, so I think we'll tack on that. Take the lift that I didn't take last lap. But this time I've got a nice clean lane, no dirt, and I can probably point mostly at the windward marks. And now it's just a case of get the boat going, get comfortable, and get it going. I could definitely do with putting a bit more Cunningham on. I mean, it seems okay at the moment, but every time I get a little bit of a header, that front edge of the sail just completely inverts, and that's not great, because then the boat wants to try and throw me in, and then I overcorrect, and it's just kind of a never-ending correction mess. Very, very weak breeze. Okay, I can't tell where the windward mark is, if we're on the mark or not. Looks like Andy, yeah, we're on the mark here. Andy's been able to go around it. So I'm in fourth now. Am I able to make it back? Obviously, I have spent a lot... I feel like I had the downwind on the Saturday of the event much better sorted than the upwind. I was much more confident in being able to detect what was going on and where... And I thought about this overnight, and I was able to do that a lot more on the Sunday. So this reach is a lot quieter than the last two laps. So here's all about getting the kicker off, getting the sail opened up, and sort of treating it a bit more like downwind. But I was also just like not wanting to not be super ready just in case it did breeze up for a second, because you just never know. You never quite know what's going to happen. Okay, we've got a little bit of pressure here. Hopefully this will help me catch up to the back of Andy, who just had a really good beat, and I can't quite figure out what he did differently to me as we went the same way up. Potentially he had his sail trimmed a little bit differently and wasn't maybe pinching quite as high, but it seemed like he had really good height, so it's hard to tell. Now, behind me I've got Rich Smith and Jamie. Now, I think there was a bit of a gap to them, so I felt a little confident to take some risks. But here I'm thinking, is it worth taking a jibe, is it not? It's hard to tell. Both sides look pretty good at the moment. But what I am able to do is soak really low. You can see whoever's on the right there has gone really far to the right and is going to have to travel much further. Trying to get all of my kicker off. Okay, really shutting down now. Someone's gone really far to the right there. Just about keeping the body movement very, very minimal, keeping the weight forwards, getting the boom out. Sometimes it can help to push your hand against the boom. Sometimes what I do is I wrap my arm around the mast to hold myself up, and then I push the boom. Here the boat's wanting to jibe. There's been a bit of a shift there. That's going to take me mostly to the mark. Not entirely to the mark, but there's been a shift, so I should probably take it. Get myself into a bit of pressure. Looks like I've caught up here with what could be Andy Peak. Pop another jibe in quickly. Try and keep that rack out of the water though. A little bit further, a little bit further. And pop another jibe in here. Okay, caught right up to Andy here. Back to where we were basically at the start line of the beginning of this lap. Now, what can I do to put the pressure on him? Now, obviously, I've got the advantage here. I can block his wind, give him a bunch of dirt off my sail. Now, I did read, I can't remember where I read this, but downwind, which is basically what we're doing here on this reach, very, very broad. The dirt of a sail travels 5 times the length of the mast. So my mast is a bit longer than a boat length, but yeah, 5 and a bit boat lengths of dirt. That's quite a lot of dirt you've got to factor in. And the 600 mast is not short. Okay, very gently does it. Trying to get that kicker off fully. As you can see, I've got the whole cascade touching each other. I recently just redid my kicker, so this is the first event using it. I've got 2 high load blocks at the top and then 2 30mm normal blocks at the bottom. It's running really smoothly and the lengths are really good, so it means I get the full range. I haven't tried using it in windy conditions yet where I need to go block to block, but it has worked really nicely for downwind so far on those light wind days. Okay, here's the mark rounding. Andy's just ahead of me there. Catching him up, but still not confidently close to him. The other two, as you can see, Rich and Jamie, they've got a little bit of separation from us. So I'm feeling fairly confident here that I can just focus on Andy and I don't need to worry about the other two. But I will keep an eye on them just to make sure that they aren't doing anything that looks really, really good that I should be trying to do too, like going off to a different side of the course. Now, as you can see, it's shifted so much that we can actually get through the start line entirely on this lap, which is great. Means we can, you know, make a little bit more of a sort of decision on whether we want to go to the right or if we're tacking off to go to the left. Now, the wayfarers are going downwind with their kites, so the left-hand side could be quite dirty. But it could also pay. I mean, at the moment, we're probably going to be able to make the mark in practically one go. So that is definitely something to factor in. And if you look, Andy's actually lost a lot of height despite the mark rounding. A little bit more pressure coming up, so hopefully that we can get ourselves going. At the moment with this shift, it makes no sense to tack, which is going to make it hard for me to catch Andy because there is no reason to do anything different. But Andy doesn't seem to be able to point in these light winds, even though he did it great on the last lap. So I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm gaining on him just based on him losing the height. We both rounded the mark the same way, but I have a fair bit more height on him. And there's a bit of pressure coming down the left-hand side here, which has helped me get going, giving me a little bit of a lift too. And so now that we're on separate lanes that are quite separate to each other, we'll basically be sailing in different pressure. So now while I'm going really nicely here, could do with a little bit more Cunningham potentially, which I think is maybe what I'm thinking about doing. Andy, on the other hand, looks like he's not quite in the same puff that I'm in, so potentially, oh, big bit of pressure. Very, very shifty, but really good for keeping on your toes. As you can see, I'm going much quicker than Andy now, but big header there, and it's just making it harder and harder to get around that mark. Trying really hard. I don't want to lose the height, and I don't want to do a double tack, but look how much height I just lost. So I'm thinking I've got to do a tack and pray that I get a lift that will take me around the mark. Andy's got the advantage here of being much further to the side. I am able to make the mark. So maybe he overshot the ley line because it shifted so much that the next tack, when we tack back, it's a nice lift. Potentially I've got him here just because I was able to sail a short course. Looks like I maybe have done it, but he will be going quicker on a more of a reach than me, whereas I'm pinching for as much height as I can get, worried that it's going to it's going to hit me with a header and make it so I won't get around the mark. So I'm just being very, very sort of tight here, making sure to not overdo it. Really, really struggling to balance the boat here, where I'm so low in the boat. There we go. Definitely got Andy here. So interesting. So while I think I had issues pointing on the last lap, it's worked very, very well in my favour here. There we go. Now this is where I'm worried. This is where I've struggled the most, is this downwind. Am I going to be able, on these reaches, I find it difficult to be able to defend myself on these reaches without sailing in the wrong direction. Maybe someone can give me some tips in the comments on things I could do differently to help me go quickly on reaches, help me defend against other boats, help me overtake other boats. A lot of people tend to go quite low on these reaches, and I just couldn't quite understand how they were able to basically go much lower than me, but basically go the same speed. I couldn't quite figure it out. Especially because they're having to go through my dirt. It's not something I really understood. Okay, going along, getting there. Bit of pressure here. Let's take it. No mark room for Andy. I'm thinking here, let's go for a jibe. Or not. I'm not thinking of going for a jibe. To be fair, it shifted so much that you can practically make the mark in one go. But if Andy jibes, I was thinking I might go two. Sitting far forwards. Pressure's going quite nicely down the middle at the moment, so I guess we'll just take that. Practically pointing at the mark here. Nice. I think Andy jived off just to do something different. Soaking nice and low here. We are catching the back of the Wayfarers though, so that is a challenge of something we are going to have to factor in on this last bottom reach. This is the last lap. Looks like the mark's just over there, so looking really good for me at the moment. Rich is, you know, quite far ahead, as is George, so they're out of the picture for this race. Where I could have been racing with them if I hadn't messed up that second lap. Pop my drive in nicely there. There you go, watch the mark. Now it's just about of trying to not overdo it for this mark. Okay, a little bit of pressure there. Trying to swap from my using the main sheet at like a 2-to-1, get a little bit of kicker on just to help the boat accelerate. The difficult bit now is, like I said earlier, trapeze is directly behind me, struggling to hook myself on. I don't necessarily need to, I can use the rack to sort of lean against, but I am worried that I'm going to get hit by a big gust and then not be able to deal with it and just lose a load of the power I could have had. Get the kicker off. Bear away again. Loosen that sail up again. Andy's not far behind me. So just keeping an eye on, just focusing on keeping the boat speed. I don't want to... He's not close enough that I can really do anything about it by luffing him up or whatever. And also Andy has a lot more experience at that than me, so I know I would lose that battle. Yeah, Andy's right there. I do not have to give him mark room. But he is right on my tail. I've got a wayfarer right there to give me dirt. Andy hasn't got any of his controls on yet. His sail's super baggy. But I am thinking I'm going to need to pop a tack in. Decided to pop a tack in. Now the safe thing to do here would have been to pop another one in, but the risk is then I would have had to maybe do another one to get through the line. So I've decided I'll just go straight for the pin. I'm on the rack at the moment, going really nicely. Andy is going to have to deal with that wayfarer on the other side, so I'm thinking, can I do it? Now it gets really, really tight here because Andy's pretty close to just popping a tack in and going through, as am I, but I'm pinching for height, and I get hit by this nice lull here. Well, not nice at all, but yeah, so close. Should have definitely thought about attacking back potentially, but I was able just to get through the line just before him. So pretty close racing. Andy kept me on my toes for that whole race, but definitely a good little battle there, and some good learnings. I guess the main takeaway is keeping your head out of the boat upwind, making sure I understand the heading on the mark that I have, because clearly whatever I was doing was not good. On that second lap, I was not paying attention to the fact that I should have tacked back. Here comes Andy. Yeah, good racing. Here comes Jamie and Rich Smith. So you can see we had a bit of a gap to them, but any mistake could have cost us there. And they're going quite nicely upwind as they go through the line. Nice little reach here at the end here just to finish things off. Now, I've got 2 more videos from Bough Beach. These are from the Sunday where we had, I'd say, a little bit more wind, and the racing was much closer. Everyone was a bit more dialed in. So yeah, subscribe for that.